why are we going from the Tenderloin to Hollywood, you might be asking, and why is Scott Budnick, who was producer of the Hangover movies and many other successful ventures, our last speaker? And I think one of the reasons we wanted to close with Scott is because in a lot of ways, we see the face of Scott in this audience. We see the faces of all of you who, in your individual area of passion that's your work, reached an incredible peak, an incredible ability to achieve success. And if you're like me, or like many of us, that success is awesome, but it's not as fulfilling as at the end of our lives we want it to be. And the reason that I think Michael and Xochitl started Battery Powered is because I think within many of us, we are asking these questions about what we gave back on our way to achieving that success, or when we achieved that success, what we did to help other people with some of that glory. And Scott is a great example of someone who did amazingly funny, hysterical, mind-boggling things. Immature. But also has this heart of gold that's working really hard on this issue. So I would love for Scott to tell a story.
So came to Los Angeles in 1999 and started working for a filmmaker on a comedy called Road Trip. And career took off, worked on Old School next, 2 hits in a row, everything was going great, started producing movies at 24 years old, and found myself in 2003, 4 years into my career in Hollywood, just a little bit trapped in a bubble of going to the nice restaurants and the bars and the clubs and having the same conversation everywhere I went about this director and that actor and this movie. And I found myself just feeling a little bit empty inside. And at a fundraiser, I met a colleague of mine, also in the film business, who said, come down to Juvenile Hall. I teach a creative writing class. Come sit with a bunch of kids who are locked up and listen to their stories. And in 2003, I went down to Sylmar Juvenile Hall, and I sat with 14, 15, 16-year-olds, Prophet Walker being one of them, and attended a creative writing class. And as they went around the table, I realized, and I asked them, why are you here? And as I heard the stories, I realized that all these kids, before they victimized somebody and ended up in juvenile hall, were just incredible victims of fathers. None of them had fathers. Sexual, physical abuse, foster care, everything you would expect not to happen to a child. Every adult in their life had failed them over and over and over again. And of course, when you're failed in that way and you feel no love at home, you run out to the streets and you find love in a different way. And they found love through peers that felt the same way. And here they are. And I realized when talking to them that all of them were worth much more than their worst act. And if they made the choice to turn their lives around, I mean, we all know what we all were like as teenagers, that all kids have the capacity to change if they so choose. And all of these kids were facing life in prison. And the kid sitting next to me was 15 years old, named David Negretti. And he had just been sentenced to 300 years in prison at 15 years old for standing next to somebody that shot a gang rival in the butt. The victim was in and out of the hospital in the day, and for standing next to the guy, David Negretti got a 300-year sentence, which meant he would die in prison. And as I heard David's story and the other stories, I knew that these were kids that were basically forgotten, they were disposed of, they were thrown away, they were written off. Everyone else wanted to go work with kids with cancer and kids that hadn't committed crimes. And I loved this challenge. And I found the kids that were basically discarded as being very interesting. So it led me onto a personal journey where I started teaching that writing class every Saturday, and I still do every Saturday. And at first, it was kids started getting out, what do you do? I found a boarding school in Colorado that Honda started. I joined a few boards where I can give them jobs the day they got out. I got some working on The Hangover. That's no joke. I had 3 guys working on The Hangover straight out of juvenile hall. And all 3 of them are now in the union, working full-time, they went from Hangover to Iron Man. And So we now have a pipeline of that happening in our business. And then it took me into the prison system where I met that guy right there. And don't be scared of his conservative sway right there and his affection for Ronald Reagan. What he allowed me to do as a volunteer, and I was a big irritant to him, he'll tell you that, is that we're able to look at these college programs in the system. Some of them already existed and some didn't. We grew them to now there's 7,000 inmates in prison as full-time college students. And we created basically pockets of real positivity where great things were happening. And that program grew, and the kids that started getting out who were part of that program, they started going straight out into community colleges and universities. And we started having a little coalition at home of 10, 20, 30 people that had come out. And so we started an unofficial support group, and we would do weekend retreats. And when Matt Cate was secretary, Governor Schwarzenegger cut $300 million out of the program budget in prison, and all the college programs were cut. And I'm at Warner Brothers producing The Hangover, and I'm getting 20 collect calls a day from inmates who are freaking out because this was their identity. They were now college students. They were no longer inmates. They were no longer gang members. They were no longer drug dealers. They were college students, and they had a plan when they got out. They were going onto a college campus. They were going to flirt with cute college girls, and they were going to get a degree, and their lives were going to be great. And we kind of amassed Prophet and a bunch of his buddies, and we got on the phone with Darrell Steinberg, who's the head of the Senate. And in a 20-minute phone call, these guys told their stories. This is who I was as a kid. I went to prison. I found myself. I was part of this program. And now I'm out, I'm in a 4-year university. In a 20-minute phone call, Darrell Steinberg reinstated $2 million and the college program continued. Mm-hmm. And that showed me that when you have these type of success stories and you get them out there, through storytelling, through video, through just coming out and speaking in places like this, that this is a game changer. So there was a bill called SB 9, which was to end juvenile life without parole. And that bill had stalled in the legislature for 7 years because there were 12 Democrats who didn't have the balls to vote for it. And me and a bunch of these youngsters came up, coat and tie, all of them, came up and went to speak with legislators, could not get the votes. I'm at lunch, I get a call that the Speaker of the Assembly wants to see me, never met him in my life. We all walk in there, and he has 3 hangover posters on the table, a Sharpie, cameras, and the hangover has now opened the door of the guy that controls all these votes. And we ended that. He then said, let me hear their stories. They told their stories. And he said, I want you to go see this legislator and that legislator. And in one day, we got the final 2 votes after 7 years of trying, and the bill passed. Wow. And that bill got 325 kids the chance at parole if they transformed their lives. And next year, we did another bill of kids that got life sentences, which then opened it up to 6,500 young people that got life sentences and now have the chance at parole. And so much about this is just about hope. If you send someone to prison, you tell them they're going to spend the rest of their lives there, they have no reason to try to do better. But the second you give them hope, the second that a positive adult, any one of you, me, Prophet, anybody, comes into their lives and shows them a path, that a real tangible path, that something's possible, you see everything change. So now when we go into prisons, David Negretti, who I told you about, who got 300 years, now gets to go to the parole board in 10 years because of this bill. And when I went and told him about it, and I told him the bill passed, he literally cried. And he would not stop crying because now he had hope for a better future. But he had never let go of that hope. But so many have. So we started, after those 2 bills passed, a couple different foundations gave us a good chunk of money and said, you need to make this official. So we started a nonprofit called the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, ARC, which at this point is a group of 188 young men and women just like Prophet who have agreed to be crime-free, gang-free, drug-free, in school and working, and willing to be of service and give back to their communities. Matt Cate's on our board, Mike Romano, for 3 Strikes is on our board, back in the back. And what we do is 2 things. Number 1, half of what we do is provide support services and a support group, a positive support group for people coming home from incarceration. We just launched last week a housing initiative where with our local community college, we just put 24 guys and girls who are all formerly incarcerated in a dorm that never existed at a community college, and now they're going to school and they're working and they're in an incredibly positive environment. The other half of what we do is use these incredible young men and women to be the catalyst for political change. And we spent a lot of time in Sacramento. We have a bill sitting on the governor's desk this year. So 3 years in a row, we've written and co-authored legislation there on the governor's desk, and we're praying the governor signs that bill. But basically, it's a group of people that realized, as Prophet said, that he's not going to be a criminal and he wants a better life. So when these young men and women are spit out of our prison system with a $200 bill and a bus ticket and said, go try to find yourself with no support whatsoever, we're here to greet them. We pick up David's 3 Strikes guys. We bring them, we give them their first meal, we take them to get clothes, and we give them that support system they need to be successful. And I think the exciting part about our strategic plan of our organization is this is the year where we're actually going to be opening up our Bay Area office. So we have an office in Los Angeles, and now we're going to be opening a Bay Area office to start to work with all the young men and women coming home up here, and that's actually going to be our policy office. So that's going to be the group of young men and women in the Bay Area who are going to be going to Sacramento and advocating for different changes in our laws. And I think the only other thing that I want to add is not only have we kind of done a really good job working with the political system, but I think Prophet's an incredible example of how to completely and totally infiltrate the political system. His candidacy, all 4 people that ran against Prophet said, you can't win, you don't have a political fundraising machine, get out of the race, you didn't wait in line. And on June 2nd, he knocked them out of the race. And now it's one-on-one. And his opponent, I'll just go into this for 2 seconds, lower taxes on oil companies, raise sales tax on the public. And that's just one of about 10 things I could go through. Prophet is poised to win, and he's raising money like crazy. He's outraised all of his opponents. He just did a San Francisco fundraiser last period. But I really implore any of you guys, if you really want to see some real change, get someone with Prophet's story inside the legislature, forming relationships with the Democrats and the Republicans that are voting on these issues. To me, that's the game changer. Thank you guys very much.